And Happy New Year! Welcome to 2025. It already looks weird when I look at the right bottom of my screen and it says 5 instead of 4. It's gonna take probably like half a year to remember to on documents to write the 5 and not the 4. But we'll see how we go through that. But despite being in the new year, we have the same old problems. And today specifically, we talked about this many times about the future of Gaza. And I think there are a few updates that I think are good to cover, but also remember the important things. So the first thing I want to go to is apparently there is no move on the deal. That a potential ceasefire, a potential hostage deal has been in talks for some time now. I mean, pretty much constantly, almost since October 7th, there was talks about the potential hostage deal. But in the last few weeks, there was also some, but the talks are breaking up. And I want to talk also about the language of how some media report this. Joining me today is Alex. Welcome to the Daily Objective. So, Alex, what do you think about? Well, I'll go to the language right away because I found it really interesting. So, I read this on Ynet, which I found surprising because Ynet is usually a bit more. Uh, well, depends. But this is how they wrote it. The obstacles to the talks remain the number of hostages that would be released in the first phase of the deal, with Israel demanding twice as many Israeli captives than Hamas has agreed to free. Now, this is a really weird like formatting of it because it sort of and this is what when we talk about how media lies, the problem oftentimes is not that they are misreporting like actual facts, or they are misreporting or they are trying to actively lie. Oftentimes the way the message is put is what's important. And so sort of what you're getting from this is that like Israel is the unreasonable one. Israel is the demanding twice as much. Why is it not Hamas is only agreeing to half as little as they would agree to? So Alex, what do you think about this language? Later we can go to the actual deal itself, but now just what do you think about the way it's put as?
Well, I just want to say, I want to really express my utter disgust at those unreasonable Israeli negotiators who are just, making insane demands, like, releasing the human beings that were kidnapped over a year ago. This, as if that's an unreasonable expectation to have. In actual fact, I think that that should be a prerequisite. Release the hostages, and then we'll talk about, how potentially we might have a ceasefire. But it's absolute emotional blackmail. This is not a negotiation. Of course, it's not a negotiation between, two equal parties, right? It's like if Daniel and I were to negotiate like a rental contract or something. No, it's not like that at all. It's extortion. That's what it is. This is extortion on every single level. And Ynet, it doesn't really surprise me because they do have a lot of contributors who very much want to put the blame on specific people for the hostage deal not happening. It's either okay. It just depends with what bias, right, the person who's writing the article has. So maybe sometimes it'll be the evil right-wing people in the coalition who are refusing the hostage deal, and they're the reason. And maybe if you're reading it from another angle, it's because the left wing, it's their fault because they're too easily pushed about. So it's a completely horrific lens to actually look through this because it's as much as you might hate Bibi, or as much as you might hate his coalition partners, he did not kidnap these human beings. It is not his fault. Many things are, but we have to put the blame squarely on the perpetrator, squarely.
Yeah, and then we also have to talk about what is the proper solution after it happens. So just quickly, I want to go to something from Hamas specifically. The terror group claims Israel is demanding the release of soldiers and wounded men, although they do not comply with the criteria for the humanitarian exchange. Uh, they would agree to hand over bodies of dead hostages if a deal is made. And again, so first of all, I'm not going to look into international law and humanitarian exchange to find out that it's true. It might be true that under because there are also IDF soldiers, I believe, as hostages in Gaza. So technically, they like get lower priority, or in this case, maybe it's not even considered as a humanitarian exchange, but like a prisoner exchange. But again, it is. I mean, it's truly disgusting, like trying to like qualify that altogether. But also, this is what is really sad. I mean, I believe we don't know precisely how many hostages are alive. Hamas is not able to provide Israel with any list about where even the hostages are. I think last time I checked, that is intelligence believing I think about 30 of hostages are most likely dead, maybe 30 to 40. So, and I know if you go some, I think weeks or months back, there were some rescues when IDF again rescued like dead bodies of hostages. I mean there was one when they were killed like soon after, but I think there were a few other ones, and it's truly like it's truly insane that like Israel is many times like negotiating over dead bodies, and I understand that it probably means a lot to the families, and
Hmm.
there's nothing I can say like to that. Obviously, you would want someone back, even if they're dead, even if it was just their body. But the fact that how Hamas is getting away with it, and the fact that, yeah, basically dead bodies are put above the lives, and I don't mean of other hostages, but of actual Israelis like living in Israel right now. The fact that any potential ceasefire, any potential stop to the fights will allow Hamas to reorganize, will allow Hamas to somehow, or at least somewhat, get back and be able to threaten more lives of Israelis. So that's why, you know, in the news for the last few weeks, there are talks about like ceasefire, talks about negotiations. I think there was one story even about the North ceasefire sort of falling through, but I haven't been following that as much. But yeah, it's important to remember any sort of ceasefire is allowing Hamas to persist, is allowing Hamas to survive. Not to mention that any hostage deal will require a release of as some people in the West like to say, Palestinian hostages in Israel, which of course means the terrorists who committed October 7
Yeah.
or were caught after. So, I mean, Alex, what do you think about any potential deal?
Listen, I just want to say one thing, okay? Like we, as critical as we are 100% with the hostages, 100% with their families. You know, they're going through absolute hell on earth, and we, very much want to see them home immediately. Okay. Um, However, there's no negotiating with Hamas because you can't negotiate with them. Whatever you trade with, they're only going to win. They're only going to win from this scenario, and that's why this particular type of warfare that they engage in, with the taking of bodies and with the taking of hostages, that's why it's so pernicious, because they know that we have a conscription army. We have to do everything. We have to let people know that you know we're gonna, you're gonna be joining the army. You're going to be, doing X, Y, and Z. We have to try to show people, yeah, we are gonna do everything we can to protect you and get you back. And that is a very that has been a cornerstone, I think, of the IDF and also of Israeli policy. And it's of course it is the correct thing, okay? Like if you want to think about it in an abstract way, but it's not the correct thing when you're talking about exchanging engaging in some kind of deal with a terrorist organization. Okay, that's what makes it immoral. And I would say, the only way really to get the hostages back is through putting tremendous amount of pressure on all sides, right? On of course militarily, right, in Gaza, as well as leaning on them heavily, leaning on them, literally getting the Americans with all of their power and all of their strength that they have to put pressure on the Qataris, to put pressure on the Turks. Okay, I mean, let's not, I mean, of course, there's the diplomatic solution to this as well, but it only comes from strength. The fact is that, Hamas are always going to be doing this, right? The moment they're always going to be wanting to, kind of, pretend to be doing the negotiation to get it into quite an advanced stage for the Israeli public to get really excited about it, for the families to get really excited about it. And then at the last minute you go, oh, but if you guys are going to need to leave the Philadelphia corridor, I should have said that at the beginning. Oh, you're not willing to do it? Well, I'm ready to have a deal with you. I mean, I'm ready. We're ready. We're ready to have a deal with you. What do you mean? So it's your fault that the hostages aren't home because you're not agreeing to my terms. It's it's extortion in every sense of the word. And even we had reports coming out in the media that the terrorists were calling up the families of the hostages and telling them to come out. And it's saying, like, if you don't come out and protest tonight, we're going to kill Idan. Can you just imagine? Can you imagine like that kind of abuse? Like it's absolutely disgusting. And the problem is that it's kind of almost a little bit like Putin. Like, Putin is in such a state where he really should not be engaging in any kind of, he shouldn't be thinking that he can have an advantageous, settlement with Ukraine. But, he's totally against the ropes. He doesn't really have a lot of negotiating room. But the moment he kind of thinks that he does, he's going to exploit that. And now, he's been, the rumors have been out there that he's saying, oh, I'll agree to a peace deal on the condition that, of course, there's a complete demilitarization and breaking up of NATO, and yeah, we get to keep Crimea and whatever else we want to. It's like, the moment you negotiate with evil, they will win. You will lose. That's really the kind of, and the problem is as well is that, okay, we understand it very, very clearly, right? That when you release terrorists for hostages that you want back very much. Okay, when you release these terrorists, it's not just the victims that are going to be caused, right, or going to be created by releasing the terrorists. Imagine, I'm here in Jerusalem. Imagine all of a sudden you just have a mass murderer, okay, that's not learned his lesson, that still is completely all in with mass murdering, and then he's released on the streets of Jerusalem, right? That is literally something that happens. What do you think he's going to do? He's going to become, a bonbon salesman, right? But more than that, you know what it does to these terrorist victims? It's like, these terrorists, like the one I told you about, the Tamimi, right? Ahlam Tamimi, who had 17, I think it was a 17 life sentences and is yucking it up in Jordan, and how devastated Arnold Roth, Malky Roth, one of the victims of the bombing, right? How devastated this man is. So, like, I mean, on every single, and it's also would mean losing the war, because all you need to have is Marwan Barghouti getting out of Ophir prison, right, making the V for victory sign. The war is over.
Yeah, and it's important to remember, uh, I mean, if you go back during the Gilad Shalit deal, yeah, Sinwar was one person, among those hundreds of terrorists. And if you do another release, who knows whether another someone of his style is. Not to mention, I mean, every single like terrorist should absolutely should absolutely not be released. There is absolutely zero justification. Again, that again and again sort of perpetuates this conflict. Make sure you're just giving them people so they can do it again.
Hmm.
There will be no solution. And sort of going further,
We can't build fences. They don't work. You know what I mean? You can't. You literally can't.
yeah, I mean, I always talked about how there is the idea of the two-state solution, and I always talk about the idea of civilized society. It's not just about sort of like having the security, sort of having the police enforcing laws. That plays a big part. It's a necessary thing to have to basically make sure no one person that goes crazy or that wants to break laws. There is a system in place that can like put him down. But there is something much bigger keeping civilization in power. It's the fact that we accept that we cannot steal from each other. We accept that we cannot break law. We accept that it's not okay to initiate force on other people. That is a basic requirement for any civilized society. When you have a society of Palestinians that when a fence breaks down, they go and start killing and kidnapping and raping and like mutilating people. There is no way to there is no fence, there is no police that can
There's
save you from
nothing.
that. There is when you have like such a different stack of societies, that there is nothing you can do. Like if my neighbor, if all of my neighbors wants to kill me, there is no police that can save me. If one neighbor wants, maybe there is something that can happen. We can deal with like extreme cases. We cannot deal with the extreme society. That's simply something you cannot have. So sort of going into the future plans for Gaza, it sounds like security officials have warned the government that Hamas was rebuilding its control in Gaza. And
Oh
hours
shit.
later, Israel said, or I think the prime minister's office said, they would continue war even after the ceasefire. So basically, it still looks like the idea of a permanent ceasefire is still being rejected. Now going into Netanyahu's office. The policy of the prime minister in Gaza is that neither Hamas nor the Palestinian Authority would govern Gaza, including having responsibility over distribution of humanitarian aid. The security agencies are considering alternatives and would continue to do so. Cutting Hamas off from aid distribution is meant to prevent the terror group from controlling the civilian population and to bring about the release of hostages and in some ways, great. It's nice to get a confirmation that there will be no Hamas or Palestinian Authority uh, in the future of Gaza, but also that should have been
Obvious.
not even clear from day one. That should have been clear before day zero. It never should have happened. Palestinian Authority should have never been allowed to even uh, take care of Gaza or be given Gaza. I mean, we've seen what they've done and what they keep doing. They are encouraging terrorism against Israelis. There is no willingness to live peacefully with Israelis in any way. And just one more quote, then I'll kick it to you. The prime minister insists that plans for the day after in Gaza cannot be implemented until Hamas is completely destroyed, along with all its capabilities. Now, this has also been true for a long time. Basically, Netanyahu has always refused to basically give any day after plan. I think that was the one of the big problems with Yoav Gallant. Basically, Yoav Gallant has demanded to know what's going to happen with Gaza after the war, and I'm sort of split. In some way, I want to know what is the plan for Gaza, but in some way, I know that any sort of occupation of Gaza is going to be incredibly unpopular. I mean, with the world, definitely, and probably even with the Israeli society itself. I think many people will be against occupation. So maybe that's one of the reasons why he doesn't want to say, doesn't want to, in a sense, give in any sort of information beforehand, which on some level I can understand. But I mean, Alex, what do you think? Why has he always refused to give any sort of plan for the future of Gaza?
Yeah, I mean, he's really being torn in a million different kind of directions. In that, like uh, it's the defense establishment, and when I mean that, I kind of mean the brass, right? The brass of the defense establishment, that brass of the IDF. Their dream is that they will be able just to take the keys and to give it to the PA and say, this is your problem now. Please deal with it. Right? Because that is their conceptia, right? That is their strategic concept, if you will. They have this opinion that, okay, we'll just hand it over to them and then they can kind of, deal with it as they need to deal with it. And if we have to, we'll go in and do raids, right? And it's working, but and I am sympathetic to, in a certain way, right, to that way of thinking, even though it's totally the wrong way of thinking. Militarily, it makes a tremendous amount of sense because being able to fight a long-term insurgency is, very, very difficult. Um, but right, but on the other hand, there is no other choice. The only people who can really administer law successfully in Gaza on a full-time basis, not like what you have in Judea and Samaria with area A, B, Z, 2, F, it's ridiculous. Okay, wherever you have any concentration, any buildup of self-governing Palestinians, you have terrorism. And it just doesn't, it just kind of is a matter of to what degree that terrorism is at. Okay, so let's say if we think of, Gaza was fully self-governing entirely, right? They controlled their own borders, right? So that's what that looks like. Okay, Gaza is what that eventuality looks like. Whereas Ramallah, the Israelis are a little bit more involved and who's traveling in between what. And then you have, Jenin, right? And Jenin's it's like completely and utterly lost, completely lost control. So we already know, right? We already know that that's going to be the results. But then on the other hand, you have to also remember that this is us sending our sons and our daughters to Gaza, right? Which is, none of us, I mean, I really don't relish that. It's not something that fills me with an enormous amount of like, oh, okay, great, that'll be good, right? It doesn't make you feel happy. It doesn't make you feel it makes you feel it really does fill me filled it really does fill me up with so much dread because it's like, oh, we're literally going to be stuck with these savages forever. Like we're never going to be able just to get rid of them, just convince them to leave or convince them to be normal. um it's like ugh, we're stuck forever. But I think that they have to communicate what their plans are to the citizens, so that we can kind of mentally prepare ourselves, right, for that eventuality. But I don't know. Bibi is not really going to have much support for this. He is, I suppose, if there's going to be, rebuilding the settlements in Gaza, in North Gaza at least, then it will kind of make a lot more sense, right? But if it's just us being there and having a civilian and military occupation indefinitely, well, it's rough. It's really, really rough. Um, but that's obviously what has to be done. There is no other choice. Okay. And his lack of ability to communicate that, and also I think to commit to a future plan, it's making it seem like it is ambiguous, right? Like maybe, for the right conditions, he will agree, just to leave Gaza, right? I mean, ideally, what I would want would be to take Gaza and to just, drill a big hole and a big line and just push it into the Mediterranean, right? And just say, good luck. You're now your own autonomous floating islands in like the Pacific or whatever. But that's just as impossible, right? As them being entirely self-governing. Both are impossibilities.
Oh, why Pacific? I mean, Irish people seem to love them. We can just put it right next to the Ireland, meaning the island. Maybe they can,
Hmm.
I bet they'll be happy to deal with that. But yeah, as you say, there is in the same way that after the Second World War, the occupation of Germany and the occupation of Japan, there was the only way forward. There was the only thing you could do. In a similar way, occupation of Gaza is the only thing you can do. There is no. We've seen what happens when Hamas takes over. We've seen what happens when Palestinian Authority takes over. We've seen what these Palestinians societies do, and the biggest problem is that the West supports Hamas and Palestinian Authority. They support this kind of policy. That's why I say there will be so much internet. I mean, people still have a problem with the Golan Heights. The fact they are calling Israel occupying Golan Heights, despite the fact that Israel has been holding Golan Heights longer than Syria ever had. So, at what point do you say, well, okay, maybe it is actually like owned by Israel? So yeah, it's basically after I don't know, maybe around like right after the Second World War, the international law experts just took a picture of the world map and basically, that's how it's supposed to be. That's the perfect way to like
Right.
organize all states, and it has to stay frozen like that, which is again truly, at the very least, disappointing. But it's truly evil. The fact that the
Hmm.
the Palestinians don't suffer any consequences for their actions when they commit October 7th. They get recognized by more people. UNRWA gets more funding. They have pretty much unlimited support from the UN. And yeah, they are pretty much allowed to persist. So that's the biggest problem. And also, I think even if Israel was alone for this, if Israel itself was united on the fact that something has to be done about Hamas, something has to be done about the Palestinian population, the
I think
ideology
there
of the
is. I want to say,
Palestinians.
I do think that there's unity around that. I just don't, I really do. I really just, I don't think that there's unity around the way that that has to be achieved, right? Because this is not, we're not sending, to understand it from this perspective, we're not sending mercenaries there to go and, deal with the population of Gaza. This really is our children and and our brothers and our, wives. It's like, you know, it's, it's a very real thing. It's that's so we're so connected to it. And, I, it, so that's why I think it is difficult. But I don't think that there's a set, you're always going to have the 10%, 15% of the population who are just total denialists and, they're living in their fantasies. But I mean, I, at least myself, maybe I'm in a bubble, but I see a tremendous amount of realization about who the Palestinians are that I didn't see a year ago, 2 years ago, shall we say.
Yeah, but then, of course, the biggest thing is it's pretty easy to see there is a problem. It's much harder to see a solution. As humans, we don't have automatic knowledge. We don't have
Hmm.
automatic solutions to problems. And when it comes to Gaza, really, as bad as it sounds, in that Israelis have to be involved, the occupation of Gaza is the only way forward. If there
And it's,
was some magical organization that could take over and de-radicalize them themselves,
mhm.
something that UN maybe could be one day in like 500 years when they
Oh,
decide to not support terrorists. But we've seen their job with the UNIFIL specifically. Even when they just get one single area, they cannot do anything because they are not, and it's not about them not being effective, it's they are not willing. So unfortunately Israel is the one that has to do that. And so
and
yeah.
by the way, like I just want to say something like, it's, let's say Jerusalem as an example. Okay. So Jerusalem as a city is an enormously safe city. It's an enormously safe city. It's an enormously prosperous city. And you have half of the population there that are Palestinians. And you have, a unity with the light rail, whereby you can go from the east of the city, way beyond the green line, so to speak, right? Into like, Pisgat Zev, and all the way as well to the west, right? So you have, and the presence of the same, Palestinians, so to speak, as they have in Gaza, right? It's not as if that they basically have kind of, they're the same, they're the same. Well, I don't really think there's the same people, because obviously these are Eastern, right? So they're more like Jordanians, but in any event, right? And but it's because the Israelis have full control, right? And Israel has a very, very good grip on the policing and a very, very good grip on counterterrorism. So it creates a reality whereby everybody's, doing well from this. Everybody's doing well from this situation, right? Here you have, Palestinians who are earning, I mean, like European salaries, right? Working in nice office jobs, having great booming businesses, having great, relations because of tourism. Okay. And that is only because of the presence and the stability and the control that the Israelis have. Okay. Everybody wins out of this. And so, in an alternative, maybe fantasy world, you could have, right, a light rail in Gaza that connects, Khan Yunis with, I don't know, Shterot, right? It's not out of the realm of possible. It is possible, okay? But you have to you have to believe it, and you have to be willing to enforce it. And that does involve, de-radicalization, and that does involve I think also being strong, being tough. Because integration is the only way, right? Either they emigrate, right? Or you have integration, because the fences don't work, separate little ghettos don't work. Having this idea, big good fences make good neighbors. No, no, it's simply never going to work, right? You have to, I think the Jerusalem model is the only model. Otherwise, you have, what is it? It's anarchy.
We have a super chat from Jonathan. I'm not sure if I read any. Jonathan, thank you so much. Another super chat from Jonathan. Thank you so much. He says more Alex in 2025. We'll try if she wants. And we have a super chat from Bonnie. Thank you. A super chat from Jeff. Thank you so much. Super chat from Jonathan again. Thank you so much. And another super chat from Jonathan. Thank you. Says ex-Israel, the Middle East is a tribal, backwards, mystical cesspool. I mean, absolutely. That's the biggest problem, that you're trying to have yeah, basically like uncivilized people trying to live together, or trying to live next to civilized. That is, it's
Mhm.
impossible. There needs to be some general understanding of what it takes to have a civilized society for it to exist. And I think I wanted to mention something else, but I cannot remember.
And
So
also, I do want to
yeah,
say as well, I think that one of the big problems here is, in addition to this, is that I do think that there is a real, sickness that is going through the defense establishment, right? And there is this unwillingness. Okay, they're so, imagine you've spent the last 30 years of your life, right, being committed to a certain ideology, right? It's almost like, the two-state solution in Oslo is almost like a product in some capacity, right? It's this kind of, smorgasbord, where it's like this kind of, I don't know how to say it. It's like this, you know, little ball of ideology that you've built. Okay, it's your product. And you were there when you negotiated Oslo, and now you're a big, high-flying general. Okay, so this is almost like your baby, and it's very, very hard to criticize your own ideas, and then you become married to them. And that is really the problem in the defense establishment, right? Is that you have this marrying of this idea. And we imagine the two-state solution as if that is the only option here, right? You have a, I mean, really, you have a country like Israel where people can, where Israelis are, quite literally, inventing GPS, right? And inventing all of these, medical devices that save, tens of thousands of lives. You have that kind of industriousness and ability to think. But yet, this is the only solution to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. It's this complete lack of imagination. So this is really something that is so deeply embedded, so deeply ingrained. I think it's actually a strategic liability for Israel, because now you do have these individuals who, like I said, they've been selling a product for years that they're not being honest to Bibi, and they're hiding, information from him. And there's this very, I would say, there's a very opaque reality that's going on in the political and defense establishment where everybody's hiding information from everybody else. So the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. And so then you have somebody like the person who's negotiating the hostage deal, who's the head of the Mossad, and he's a guy who can read. Why do they send the head of the Mossad to do this hostage negotiation? Because he is a human lie detector. He's there to try and understand, your body language, right? He's reading to see if you are bullshitting, basically. But if you have this, Mossad negotiator, the head of the Mossad, and he's not able to talk to the political echelon because he's hiding information from him, and vice versa, you're negotiating with one hand tied behind each back, and everybody's trying to save their own skin. So it's a real problem. It's a real problem, and they all need to go. Sorry, I don't think the top brasses watches Ayn Rand Center, but if they do, you guys all need to go.
And by they need to go, we mean, get fired or
Yeah,
get a
we're
different
not,
position.
yeah, we're not making any direct threats on anybody. Please don't come after us. And it was Daniel's idea. If anything happens, it was Daniel's idea.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
they get a
you need
nice
to resign. You
they
need to
get a nice
resign.
severance check. It's all it should all be dealt with properly.
A pension forever. They're not, don't feel too bad. Okay. But yeah, you need to all resign. Okay. Everybody who's a brigadier general and above, you guys all need to resign. Sorry. It's time for fresh thinking.
Yeah, and as the last year, we'll continue covering this because as we oftentimes say, it is truly one of the most, uh, in a sense, misunderstood conflict. Misunderstood is uh, weak word. It's many people are straight up evading or being straight up evil, and I think it's one topic where I think Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism is the only philosophy that can give a clear answer. So that's why we try to focus on it. Earlier in the chat, someone said, "Is civilization bombing women and children?" So a few days ago, I've talked about how. Israel has destroyed 80% of the housing in Gaza, yet
Oh my
somehow
God.
only
Oh,
killed like 2% of the people. It's almost
oh.
as if they bomb empty buildings. And I said 80% as like I'm exaggerating, or as sort of like what I remembered. Apparently, Hamas claims Israel has destroyed 92% of housing in Gaza, yet again has only managed to kill 2%. Like Israel really sucks at this at this like genocide, or at this like trying to just indiscriminately like kill people. So yeah, if you are someone who believes that Israel is just killing women and children and is not hitting
Yeah.
like killing any soldiers, I mean, check your premises.
Well, it's not even
Try.
that. Yeah. Okay. Imagine people like the Israelis who literally managed to plan the pager attack. Imagine the level of genius you have to be able to plan that and execute it. and you're trying to tell me those people are so bad at genocide that they're trying to kill the terrorists and they just can't. They're just killing only women and children. I mean,
Yeah, I
what are you
believe
saying?
last time I've seen from the amount of, people oftentimes say how many bombs were dropped on Gaza, but if you actually recalculate it as a how many people they actually killed less than one person per bomb like dropped. It's insane. Like they really suck at this. If that was their intention, but again, with Israel, it's never about the facts. It's never about what they are doing. They are evil by standard. And if you are thinking if that's true or not, just go back and see when said too many people died. It happened like few weeks into the conflict. People already said too many people died. So it never really was about the number. There was never like a number low enough that Israel sort of could get
Mhm.
away with. It was always impossible from the sort of Western standard, from the international standard, for Israel to ever defend itself. We also have a super chat from Ask Yeshka. Thank you so much. He says, thanks, Alex and Daniel. Alex, you look stunningly beautiful today. Love the
Oh,
pink accents. L'chaim.
L'chaim. Thank you
Uh,
very much. I don't know what your hair is like, but I'm sure it's awesome.
any last thoughts, Alex?
Yeah, I just, if anybody else is, I really hope that in the future we're going to look back on this and we're going to have all of the hostages home, and it's going to be a really exciting time for us. We want the hostages home as much as we think it's evil to negotiate with terrorists. We're 100. I mean, I don't know, I can't speak for Daniel, but I am 100% with them. I'm 100% with the families. We want nothing, really, like I would I would be doing the same, right? I would be screaming up and down, saying, "Yeah, let's release everybody in the prisons. Why not?" I would be doing it. We support you, and yeah, I really recommend Habits Honestim, the IDSF. I recommend the Alma Center for the War in the North, and I also recommend Regavim as well.
No, I actually hate the hostages.
I
Because
know, I
you
can't believe
said
I
it
said
like,
it.
I don't know about Daniel. I mean, I care about the hostages. I don't know about Daniel. I hope we can get as many of them home as possible. And as we always say, whenever we sort of talk about the families of hostages, everything they say is absolutely like understandable. It's about the people who sort of give much more sort of focus on what the families say, basically trying to get Israel to surrender, to basically give up to Hamas. We also have a last minute super chat from Walter. Thank you so much. He says Happy New Year, Happy New Year, and it's also a big super chat. So thank you so much.
One last thing I also recommend, it was the ISA, which is the Shabak, basically. They released on their website, I believe, a few days ago, or yesterday actually. They released a never before seen video of a hostage a hostage rescue, Ori Megadish at the very, very beginning of the war. So I do recommend seeing that. Gives me a lot of strength.
So make sure to check that out. Thank you, Alex, for joining me today. Thank you, everybody, for watching. There is no reality show today. It's after New Year's Eve, so we want to give people some rest. But we will be back tomorrow with another episode of The Daily Objective and the reality show. Thank you again, Alex. Thank you, everybody, and bye bye.